Running Android on SteamOS has never been easier, and with the latest advancements, more and more Android games are working properly on Steam Deck. And today we're going to do just that. Finally, Android games on the go. Welcome back to the Steam Deck Masterclass. Today, we're going to talk about running an entire Android operating system on your Steam Deck without having to dual boot. But of course, we do have to address the elephant in the room. Why would we ever run Android games on a Steam Deck? I mean, don't you guys have phones? For the most part, that is understandable. I mean, you wouldn't want to play the Android version of Dead Cells over playing the PC version on the Steam Deck now, would you? But aside from that, there are quite a few Android games that aren't available on PC yet, and may never be available, officially speaking. But on top of that though, there are non-game applications that may work better on Android compared to, say, Linux. Like, for example, Netflix. Netflix limits video resolution for all browsers on Linux. Any browser you pick, it's going to be limited to 720p video. Whereas the Android app running through Waydroid can go up to 1080p if not higher. And I've seen people claim that they use Waydroid on Steam Deck as part of their media setup. You know, docking their Steam Deck to watch Netflix at like a higher resolution. And finally, the main reason why you'd want to run Android on your Steam Deck is because it's fun, okay? Like, it's fun to tinker around and all that cool stuff. And so now let's start the tutorial. But before that, if you like this video or any other video I've made, please like, subscribe, and share with all of your friends. Spreading the good gospel of high-tech lowlife really helps me out in the YouTube algorithm. And while you're at it, why don't you check out Ōff Th e Console? It's a brand new podcast started by Gardiner, Bryant, Games Revealed and I. Sometimes we'll also have guest hosts as well. It's a great time. You should check it out. You can find our podcast wherever podcasts can be found, like Apple Music or Spotify. This tutorial assumes you're installing Waydroid on the Steam Deck for the first time. Once again, the star of this video is the SteamOS Waydroid installer script by 10-Minute Steam Deck Gamer. He's done a great job of making Android installation as painless as possible. A lot of the hard work is already done for you, to be honest. Also worth mentioning is that every time the Steam Deck gets a system update, Waydroid will break, and as a result, you will have to reinstall portions of it. More details about this later in the video. To start, you will need to be in desktop mode. As for the author's instructions, they recommend you set up a sudo password ASAP. But if you don't have one set up, the script will help you set one up yourself. So the installation process isn't as straightforward. You need to use the console application, which is basically the command line, and as such, a keyboard and mouse is recommended here. You'll want to type in this command, followed by this next command. This will pull the latest version of the script from his GitHub page. And then you run this command to go into that GitHub folder that just downloaded. And then you run this command to make the script executable. And finally, you'll want to run this command to actually run the script. The installation process afterwards is pretty straightforward. All you have to do is type in your password as prompted, and the script will install. Depending on your internet speeds, it may take a little bit to set up everything as expected. In the middle of the installation though, it'll prompt you to select a version of Android. As you can see here, only one of these has the Google Play Store pre-installed. Android 11. Yes, I understand it's the oldest version of Android on this list, but if you're a new user, that's the one I would select. That said, word has it that the developer is testing out new images of Android 13 with Google Play pre-installed, so stay tuned. But of course, if you know what you're doing and you know how to sideload applications like alternative Play stores, then it may be worth trying out Android 13. But if you're a new user, then stick to Android 11 with Google Play pre-installed. And you are done. By the way, this script automatically adds the Android instance to game mode as a non-Steam application. But before we talk about the actual Android instance itself, let's talk about this new thing right here. Waydroid Toolbox. This wasn't here when I last made this video. Yes, every time you launch the toolbox, it'll ask for your sudo password. But once you're in, you'll get access to a number of different powerful utilities. I will say many of these options exist solely to troubleshoot things, but arguably the two most useful tools are the adblock tools as well as libndk. Adblock is pretty self-explanatory, but libndk allows you to access a custom libndk patch for certain gacha games. What gacha games you may be asking? Well, I'll tell you. Later in this video, that is. You can also fully uninstall his Android Waydroid script. It can be useful for troubleshooting or if, say, you just don't want Android anymore. There's also another icon called the Waydroid Updater, which, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. It updates your version of Waydroid. And do you remember how earlier I said that updating your Steam Deck will break Waydroid? Well, this is how you fix it. You double-click this Waydroid Updater, type in your sudo password, and it fixes itself. Automatically, I might add. It's not a full reinstall of Android given that only certain parts broke, but it may take a little bit of time depending on the internet, but it shouldn't take nearly as long. So you can actually go into game mode and start using Android right now. But let's say you want to do things in desktop mode. Well, you can just search up Android Waydroid Cage.sh and you can access this entire Android instance in desktop mode. Now, the Waydroid experience on desktop mode versus game mode isn't really different at all. That said, desktop mode will still be very useful for one function: installing random APKs you've downloaded off of the internet. Instead of having to launch a browser in Android and download it within the Android web browser, you can instead use your desktop web browser, download it to your desktop, and then double-click it, and then it just installs to your Waydroid instance. So how is game compatibility? Well, I'll tell you. Quite a few games actually do run pretty okay on the Steam Deck through Waydroid. One example is Punishing Gray Raven. Yes, this does have a PC version. And yes, apparently you can run the PC version on Steam Deck. But I needed a game to demonstrate Waydroid with, so here we are. And here's some other random Android game that I downloaded, and let me tell you, this game's got controller support. That's the main reason why I downloaded it. But to be fair though, to navigate the menu and do all of the build crafting whatnot that these gacha games tend to have, you are probably going to still use a touchscreen a lot, let's be honest. But I figured we should talk about a game we showed off in the last video, the mobile version of Vampire Survivors. Now, let me tell you right now, if you're going to play on a Steam Deck, then you should just buy the game on Steam. It's like $5. And let me tell you, the Android version only really makes sense if you're going to play on your phone, or if you have like a Retroid Pocket or whatever, which I don't have. Since the last Android video, I've since learned that Vampire Survivors actually does have a landscape mode. You can find landscape, portrait, and reversed orientations as well. The game also supports controller input as well for everything including the menus, but I'm just going to say this right now. Just buy the PC version and play that on your Steam Deck. I promise you it'll be a better experience overall. But now for the game everyone was super curious about. That's right, Blue Archive. This time it's not clickbait. It's just at the end of the video. From what I understand, Blue Archive is the one game I know of that requires a libndk custom patch. And it's one of the few games I couldn't get working in the last video. But now it works. Yes. Yes, even the gameplay works, but I'm gonna tell you right now, the game does not run that well. So hooray, the game works, but it doesn't run that well. That said, this game doesn't always load for some reason. Sometimes it'll stay on the loading screen and just never load, and I'm not sure why that is. If I had to guess, it works when you apply the libndk patches, but any subsequent attempts to run it just fails. Also, one more thing for this video. I'm sure you guys want to directly launch your Android games instead of having to launch the Android app every single time. Well, the method is also changed here as well. Open up your file manager and then go to home and then find the Android Waydroid folder. And then right click Android Waydroid Cage.sh and then press add to Steam. In the start menu, scroll down till you find a Waydroid menu and then find whatever app you want to add. As you can see here, most of the Android apps you download will show up here. We're going to use Punishing Gray Raven as our example. Just right click your game and then press edit application. You need this right here, the technical name of the application. Now, it's going to start with a company name whatever it's called. It's kind of long. You also need to find that Android shortcut you made, because we're going to modify that to run a single application on launch. You will need to repeat this process for every single application you want to add as a standalone app. So just find your application, right click properties, and then find the launch options. As you can see here, this is where the name of the application goes, under launch options. The top field also lets you rename the game as well. And you're set for game mode. One more personal recommendation is to change the settings to enable native touchscreen support. You can do this by editing your controls. In the main controller screen, press edit layout, go down to action sets, press that cog wheel and press add always on command. Go over to System and press Touchscreen Native Support. This ensures that when you're playing your touchscreen games, it behaves more like a touchscreen and less like, well, a mouse. This option isn't super helpful for many PC games, but for running games on Android, it's basically perfect. So what have we learned today? Well, we learned that running Android on Steam Deck is super easy, and doing a lot of things to make the experience a little smoother is also worthy as well. But depending on the type of gamer you are, you may never find a real need for this. Not to mention many, and I really do mean many, gacha games are coming to PC. Heck, some of them are coming to Steam as well, like the upcoming Madoka Magica gacha game is coming to Steam. Now the prevailing question is, why did we bother doing any of this? Well, it's simple really. It was kind of fun. If you like this video, please press the like button and check out our other videos. And if you like those other videos as well, be sure to press the subscribe button and share the good gospel of high-tech lowlife with your friends. Furthermore, we have a community Discord for enlightened individuals such as you. And if you wish to further support high-tech lowlife, be sure to check out our Patreon page. Links in the description.